Oh man, just feeling this homecoming. Just feeling this homecoming. You know, there's a lot of folks that talk about, where we are, and this is, some people just don't get it. When I was in Ghana, and I was reading here in the tabloids of what is he doing going to Ghana? And when I stood in those dungeons, about the size of a classroom, and over 1,000 slaves were captured and held there. 2 months, sleeping in their own waste and bodily fluids, watching their wives and children ripped from them, little boys being sexually molested, mothers having their babies ripped from their stomachs, and going to the place that was called the door of no return, only to understand that every day to follow would escalate with the level of despair and inhumanity unknown to man in history. And my journey that I thought about through the campaign was just to get back to the continent of Africa, where we left in slavery and I returned in the majority. And people who criticize this, they just didn't get it. They just didn't get what my campaign represented to so many people in this city and in this country. They felt that there was someone that was one of their own. And you may look at the announcement today of just African Americans. No, it's not. Because Irish knew what it was like to come here to these shores and see signs that said no dogs, no Irish allowed. Italians knew what it was like coming here and demonized just because a small number of people participated in criminal behavior. We demonized the entire Italian community and called them all criminals. Muslims knew what it was like coming here wearing a hijab, and just because of their religion, they were treated unfairly and not allowed to participate in the American experience. Jews came here and their boats were fleeing Nazi Germany, and we wanted to turn them back into that despair. People who were Spanish speaking, people who came from all over the globe came to this country and said they wanted to participate in the American dream. This dream has been betrayed for so many people. And that betrayal lay in the heart of our educational institutional. We have denied people the right to be educated in this city. And some people just don't get it. But I got it. I got it. And when I used to put handcuffs on 11-year-old babies and realized that the reason they were committing crimes is because they couldn't read or they had a learning disability, and their mothers and fathers could not give them the treatment that they deserved, I went on an endless journey of interviewing a person to be the chancellor of the mayor of the city of New York for 8 years. I didn't have to do a national search and find someone that don't understand our city. I didn't have to do that. For 8 years, I questioned him. I asked him what he stood for. I went and visited his family and talked to his dad and his mother. I spoke with his brothers and his people that were in his circle. I wanted to see the character of the man I was going to turn my babies over to. Don't tell me about your Ivy League degrees. Don't tell me about where you went to school and how important you think you are. Don't tell me about what you were going to do because of your philosophical theories on understanding children. I don't want to hear about your academic intelligence. I want to know about your emotional intelligence. How sound are you for this battle that we are in front of? This is a real fight, New York. We are in a city with 65% of black and brown children never reach proficiency, and we act like that's normal. It's all right. Let me tell you something. If 65% of white children were not reaching proficiency in this city, they will burn this city down. Unacceptable that our children are living this way. You want to close Rikers? Then you go there and you see that 30% of those children are dyslexic and 55% have a learning disability. Let's not talk about the crime on Montgomery Boulevard. Let's talk about the crime that takes place in our educational facilities every day. You abandon these children. There needs to be some righteous indignation. But you can't just talk about your anger. We have to turn it around and start this process. That's why we're here for this moment and what it represents and what David Banks represents. A year and a half ago, everything changed in this school. Changed throughout the schools in our city. Our babies were traumatized. School buildings closed. The uncertainty, the most important part of their development and their skills, just turned overnight. Suicides and attempted suicide rates have increased. They were living in a state of despair. No one seemed to care. COVID disrupted their lives. And it exposed many inequities. And I know many people say, let's go back to normal. But what was normal? This was a dysfunctional system. And we can't go back to that dysfunctionality. These men and women who teach our children have dedicated their lives to doing so. And we have not given them the resources that they needed to provide for our babies. We have an over-bureaucratic system with Tweed Courthouse and all those who are living well above and away from the problems on the ground are trying to make decisions for those teachers, educators, paraprofessionals, cooks, janitors, dishwashers who are in these buildings every day. When was the cavalry coming from them? Well, you know what? Those bugles you hear now is David Chancellor coming in. Help is on its way. Now that in-person learning has resumed, we can't return back to the same dysfunctional system that was in play. These inequities were real, and I know them personally. How did I go to school with a learning disability to discover it in college? Just by luck, I was able to turn this around. We can't have a city on luck. Have to have a city on opportunities. And so that's what we want to present. And we're presenting that today. No more children crying themselves to sleep, believing they can't learn. We're going to do universal and we're going to stop demonizing learning disabilities. These children can learn. They learn differently. We need to learn their language and communicate with them in the language they understand so they can live productive lives. That's what David understands. It has been 40 years since I graduated from Bayside High School, and the problems still remain the same. No urgency, no desire to turn it around. We don't believe these children can learn. We bring that attitude every day, but we're going to stop that attitude. David is a visionary, leader, innovator, who has spent his career fighting on behalf of students. Like me, he grew up in Brooklyn. Like me, his family had an opportunity to move to Queens and bring a stable house. I just admire his mom and dad so much. Former police lieutenant, protected the city during some of the most difficult and dark years. But he had a clear vision of what his boys was going to accomplish and what they were going to do. Like me, David is a product of New York City public schools, including this school here, PS 161. When he went to elementary school, he told the young man when he was standing next to him, he said, I have a picture of when I was in the 4th grade and connected with that young child. But so many of these children don't have that connection. And it's time we create a school system where every student is given a chance to succeed and realize their full potential. He has this brother has been a champion for young people throughout his entire life.
That's right.
He knew culturally responsive education before it became a soundbite of those who are here and talking about it now. When other people were talking the talk, David walked the walk. Founder of Eagle Academy. Some of these young men are here today. Eagle Academy from Brownsville. He went into Brownsville and taught these young men how to stand tall. Eagle students don't walk, they soar. And he continued to take those communities who had low struggling graduation rates and started to tailor to young men and duplicated programs of young women and other sister schools are doing the same thing as we deal with the real issues that our children are facing. The numbers tell the story. More than 90% of students graduated from Eagle Academy and go on to a 4-year college. Tell me our children can't learn. And we work together every day to make sure every student gets a quality education. That's our mission. And we're going to change the learning paradigm to emphasize a whole child approach. Got to remove these barriers. Many of our babies are not going to school because they don't have clean clothing. So why can't we put washing machines in these schools? Many of our babies can't read because they don't have eyeglasses. Why can't we give free eyeglasses to our children? Many of these babies are dealing with housing issues. Over 100,000 children are living in shelter. Why can't we have someone on the ground helping our parents with the housing issues that they're dealing with? We have to develop the entire child, not just one child. Maybe Johnny can't read because Johnny did not have a meal the day before, or Johnny's dealing with a domestic violence incident. Maybe Johnny is not in school because Johnny cannot get to school safely because their mother or father don't have the child care services that they need. We got to develop our entire child, and that's what David understands, the full child approach. Then we have to be nutritionally sound. Why the same high crime areas you have the same junk food being fed in the community? Why do we have food that feeds our chronic diseases served in our schools and no one is connecting that? That is why when we announce the next Department of Health Commissioner, he's going to be connected with our Chancellor so we can provide healthy food to our students and make the connection. And we're going to insist on students starting at a young age. Everyone talks about education is K through 12. No, it is not. Education is pregnancy through profession. Our mothers in those economically challenging communities, we're going to give them doulas so they can understand the power of nurturing and touching their babies and feeding them the right food. And while we do that, we will tackle the maternal morbidity rates that are happening in the same community. Ambitious program, ambitious ideas. You need a visionary. You need someone that's clear on why he's here. And they must understand their purpose. This is a purposeful, driven life of David Banks. I'm so happy when I sat down with the other potential chancellors and I spoke with them. I would walk out of the room and talk to my aides. There's something qualitatively different about what David represents and brings to educating our children. This is his life work. This is his moment and his opportunity. We're going to spend our entire 4 years in office focused on educating our children. And trust me, we're not going to get it right all the time. There are going to be days we could have done a better job. There are going to be days we're going to wish that we could have presented our case better. There's going to be pushback in this bureaucracy of professional dividers and professional naysayers. Far too many people at the high end of this administration don't believe in these babies and their opportunities to learn. We know it's going to be hard. We got a full understanding of the scope of turning around one of the nation's largest school systems and what it represents. But I want you to know something today, that David Banks is built for this. David Banks is ready for this moment. He is prepared for this moment. He went through an 8-year difficult interview process. He knows that. And we are not going to win every war. But darn it, we're not going to lose at trying. And so on behalf of all the children and families of the city, I want to present to you the next Chancellor of the City of New York, David Banks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am deeply humbled, but I'm also ready. I'm humbled because this is a moment where God himself has put forth the word to say this is going to be a different day. I am a person of faith. You know, a lot of times in public schools, they like to say, don't say a word about God. You can't do that. This is a Kairos moment. I'm a different kind of guy. And I know from whence I come. I want to thank publicly, with the deepest respect and admiration, our Mayor-elect Eric Adams not only for giving me the opportunity to lead on behalf of all of our young people and their families and our communities, but for being what I believe will be the most bold, bodacious, and transformational mayor that New York City has ever seen. I have not accepted this assignment because I wanted to be chancellor. I didn't come looking for a job. I came to do a job. And Mayor-elect Adams has said to me, there's nothing more important. You cannot change New York City if you do not change the state of education in this city. And so that is where we begin. But let me tell you where I began. I am the firstborn child of Philip and Janice Banks. This is my mama. If she took her mask off, you'd say she looked just like him. I look just like her. There you go. That's right, my mother, barely 5 feet tall, but full of fire. Raised 3 boys right here in Brooklyn. My dad, who is my hero. Yes, he is. As Mayor-elect said, my father did 27 years in the New York City Police Department. He was a lieutenant when he retired. But more than that, he was the embodiment of what a black man is supposed to be for his family. We were one of the lucky ones, my brothers and I. My brothers Philip and Terry, my brother Terry, who's here, who I knew who's my youngest He's the youngest of the three, likes to think that he's the favorite child. Right. But we are a blessed family. I grew up right here in this neighborhood till I was about 12, 13 years old. Right? The back of this schoolyard is Montgomery Street. I live one block over, 394 Montgomery Street. I intend to walk over there when I'm done here today. I haven't been there in years, just to stand out and just reflect on this great moment. The path that my mom and dad set my brothers on was a path of transformation, not only for our lives, but they planted in me and my brothers a seed to know who we are and to know that we have a responsibility, not simply to our family, but to our community. We believe that deeply in who we really are. I loved going to PS 161. I went to this school from kindergarten through the 5th grade. That's the reason why we wanted to be here today. It's a return home for me. In fact, my mother found a picture. This was me in the 4th grade. Lord, what I would give to still have a head full of hair like that. I remember every teacher that I had in the school, Ingrid, because I think we had a lot of the same teachers. But there was a teacher who I had in the 4th and the 5th grade who transformed my life. Mama Rosa, I just want to acknowledge, she's not my teacher, but I want to tell you this. Wait a minute, before you start clapping. Just so you know, because she is the niece of the teacher who had the greatest impact on me in my life. A woman named Mildred Scott. I have a picture of Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott was a wonder. Her spirit looks down on me in this moment. Right. Because it was in this building that Mildred Scott taught me black history. Not just reading and writing and arithmetic, which is critically important, and you need that. But she taught me who I was. And she taught me about the people who fought, bled, died, and sacrificed for me to have the opportunity to be all that I wanted to be and the responsibility to my community. Far too many of our young people don't get that. The school system is structured in a way that it never teaches that. It teaches simply the mechanics of school. But if you don't know the purpose of your education, you cannot transform your community. Schools are meant to be part of community. My foundation started here at PS 161 before we moved to Southeast Queens. And I went to ultimately graduated from Hillcrest High School and had a great educational experience. And my work, I didn't even intend to be a teacher. I didn't go to school to be a teacher. Many of you may not know, I was a school safety officer for a year at Claire Barton High School, right here in Brooklyn. After that, I became a teacher at PS 167 on Eastern Parkway, right here in the same district, my old neighborhood, before getting the call to become a principal, the founding principal of a school in the Bronx called the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice. And did amazing work at that school. And what you should know about that work was that it was a young lady who came to work for me there, who I hired as a teacher, who ultimately became my assistant principal. And when I left, she became the principal of that school. She was one of the most magnificent educators I've ever worked with in my life. And she is a dear friend of mine. And I watched her as her career continued to soar, and she ultimately became our current Chancellor, Misha Ross Porter. Misha worked for me when she was 22 years old, and I watched her grow. And I want to take this moment right now, and I want to ask everybody to show some real love, because Misha stepped into a role and a moment that was one of the most difficult moments our city has ever seen, where most people would have said, I wouldn't take that job. But she stepped up and she did it, and our city should be forever grateful Please, everybody, give a big round of applause to Misha Porter. I left that school to become the founding principal of the Eagle Academy for young men. And Mariama and Jonathan, I see are here. These are two fine students who graduated from Law, Government, and Justice. And I'm so happy to see them here. At the Eagle Academy for Young Men, we have worked to transform the lives of so many young men of color, because we know that they face challenges greater than everybody else. And that work has been happening all across this city. And so all my folks who are from Eagle, stand up. Is Eagle in the building? Eagle up. Hey, Kim, I see you in the back. Elizabeth, Susan, our whole team is here. I just thank you all so much, because I wouldn't be here were it not for the work that we did at the Eagle Academy. Now we're going to get ready to take this work all over this city. I have worked in this system for over 30 years. Let me tell you what I know. I know that every young person who attends our schools across the city is filled with brilliance, potential, promise, and gifts. And I also know something else, that they exist in a school system which is fundamentally flawed. I'm not talking about the teachers. I'm not talking about the principals. I'm talking about the very architecture of the way that we do school in the first place. Woo! The way that we assess our students and their learning is fundamentally flawed. There's a reason why we have the same conversation every single year about what will it take to improve our school system. We've been doing this for decades. And all we do is fight to try to improve the reading and math scores by a few points. And then take a bow for doing that. Our very approach is off. The way that our children experience school is completely off. But the answers to how we re-engineer the system exists in the hearts and the minds of the teachers, the principals, the children, and their families. If we want to create an innovative school system, you cannot do that without engaging the community. Woo! What you see here today, all around you, all around me, all around the mayor-elect, this is community. This is no ordinary announcement. You will never see the mayor-elect, once he's the mayor, or myself as the chancellor, announce any major policy initiatives for our schools unless we are surrounded by parents and families who have co-signed what we are doing. No more will you just see a few people going through the room, think that they're the smartest ones in the room, come up with the answers and say, this is what we're going to do for all of you. Yep. The answers are not authentic, and they ultimately cannot get you to where you're trying to go unless the people themselves are part of that process and help to create that. Woo! That is what this administration will represent. That is who we are going to be. And I simply want to just tell you, the best is yet to come. We are getting ready to not just play around with this. We're going to turn over the tables. That's what the mayor-elect told me. And think about it. He said, we spend $38 billion every year in this system. And 65% of black and brown children never achieve proficiency. That's a betrayal. And we ought to be outraged by that. And we need to lean into that. You can get those results if you never had a Department of Education. Think about it. If everybody at the Department of Education went home and all the kids just went to school, you could get those same results. So what's the value add for having thousands of people who work at Tweed? For having thousands of people in these high-paid positions? There needs to be a transformation, and it will start at the top. We will turn the tables over. Trust me. People have said that for many years. But that's what certainly we intend to do. So change is coming. I have a message to a lot of folks who are down at Tweet, who think that they know me. You know, we like Dave. Dave's all right. He's good. We're so glad he's going to be the chancellor. Here's the question that will be asked of everybody who works throughout this department. If you left and your job disappeared tomorrow, would that change anything that's going on in any of our schools? Fundamentally, the job that you have, if it disappeared tomorrow, does it change the life of any young person that goes here to PS 161? Because if it does not, why do we continue to support that? Change is coming. The system will be re-engineered from the bottom up. Because principals like Michael Johnson, who's the principal of this school, who's welcomed us here today, and the principals all over New York City, and I've spoken to thousands of them. I've spoken to thousands of students and administrators and teachers. They are frustrated on a daily basis that it's a bureaucracy that sits on top of them that completely stifles any level of innovation. You cannot innovate or transform the system from the top down. It has to be from the bottom up. And so for all of the teachers who work not only at PS 161, but in every school around New York City, change is coming. I want you to know that I see you. And I respect you. And we don't lift our teachers up. We don't celebrate our teachers. We just constantly beat them down. In the middle of a pandemic, when we say we need to go back to a new normal, we need to do things differently, but we are in a quick run to try to take it back to the way it always was. Because it's what we know. And so I'm trying to bring a new vision together, working with the mayor-elect. This is his vision. He and I have been talking about this for years. And so we're going to do this, and we're going to transform this system. We're going to give it everything that we possibly can. I want to thank all my family who was here, my Aunt Barbara, my Uncle Rob, who came here all the way from Florida to be here. My Aunt Barbara, who was an educator in Brooklyn for her entire career. God bless you. You know how much I love you. All my cousins, Nadine, Demetrius, Sharon, everybody that's here. I got a big family, y'all, so I don't want to keep going. But I simply want to say, as a final word to all of you, don't ask me about gifted and talented today. That's not what today is about. Don't ask me about specialized high schools today. We're gonna have answers for all of that. But today is a day to celebrate what will be a rebirth of this department. And today is a day to recognize that it is the community that you see around you who will represent that rebirth. God bless you. Thank you, everybody. I'm ready to get to work.
Hold on. There was a day when it really clicked on why I needed him, David Banks, to be the chancellor. And I want you to share this story. This is your moment, so you don't have to rush. You're the chancellor, brother. I want you to share the story of those young men who people told that they were not college ready. Share that story.
Come on. At the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice, when I left there and I went to the Eagle Academy in the Bronx, we sent several young men to Wheelock College in Boston. And at Wheelock College in Boston, I got a call one day after several years from the president of that college, Dr. Jackie Jenkins Scott. And she called me to say, David, I just want you to know, you sent us these 3 young men, and they didn't just show up on this campus. They were leaders on this campus. I don't know what you poured into those boys, but they brought their Bronx swag and their Eagle swag, and I mean, they just took their place on this campus. And so she asked me to come to Wheelock for their graduation. And she said, we want to present you with an honorary doctorate on that day. And so I set forth to go to Wheelock in Boston with my mom and my dad and my beloved Sheena Wright, who is the president of the United Way of New York City and the head of the transition committee. And Sheena, we all went down to Boston, and we got there, and at the graduation ceremony, the president stood there, and I'm flanked by somebody from the board of trustees and the faculty. Everybody's in cap and gowns. It's a big pomp and circumstance. And the president began to talk about all the wonderful things we've been doing at Eagle Academy. And before she could start, the three young men from Eagle Academy, Marvin, Elamine, and Ivan, stood up in their cap and gowns at their college graduation in front of over 3,000 people, and they said, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I think whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. They recited the poem Invictus. Invictus was the poem that Nelson Mandela recited every day for the 27 years that he was locked up on Robbins Island. It's a poem that every young man who goes to Eagle Academy recites every day. It's the poem of resilience. That when you get knocked down, you know to get back up. And in the face of challenge, you continue to persevere. That is part of what we pour into our young men. Marvin stayed in Boston to work at a big communications firm. Elamine went to Africa to join the Peace Corps. And Ivan went to Purdue University in Indiana to pursue a dual master's and PhD program. By every account, you'd say a success, right? We came back to New York and we ran the numbers for each one of those three young men. Don't you know, each one of those three young men was deemed not college ready by the New York City Department of Education. That's what I'm talking about when I say fundamentally flawed. Because college readiness is measured purely by the score that you got on a math or ELA test. It doesn't measure grit, determination, all the things that you've had to overcome in your life to make it. If you don't make a certain score, we say you get the scarlet letter. Your school gets a scarlet letter. You're not a good school. The students are no good. And people begin to internalize that. The measure, the very fabric of how we are actually measuring our children and measuring progress for our schools is fundamentally flawed. It doesn't mean that test scores don't mean anything. They do. They just don't mean everything. And so we are going to be a champion for change. We're going to be a champion for talking about other ways to assess our children and our schools. Our children and our teachers are waiting for someone to unleash the power of passion and creativity in their very bones. They go to school and sit in rows for 45 minutes for a period every day, all day. I want young people to recognize, as Mayor-elect Adams has said, the great outdoors. There's so much learning that takes place outside the four walls of the building. New York City should be their classroom. The whole world should be their classroom. With the use of technology, we can bring the whole world right to their phone. They should be accessing information. They can have access to the best teachers around the world. It shouldn't be limited to just the teacher that's in their classroom. The power of possibility is so magnificent. We just have to embrace it. And that's what we intend to do.
That's why I knew right now. And those three young men personify what he has done with so many other young men. And that's the message we want to send to these young people, that don't blame yourselves. You are better than what people told you to do. Someone said in 1975 to an elder that went to see her son locked up in the 103rd precinct, they said he would never be anything. And that son turned out not only to be something, he turned out to be the mayor in charge of that police department. Don't give up, New York. Don't surrender. We are better than what they said we were, and we're going to move this city forward. So I thank you for this moment. I thank you, David, for taking on this role of being the Chancellor of the city of New York. Stephen, the ball is in your corner.
We're going to take on-topic questions at this time only from members of the media. On topic at this time. Jillian, you're first.
Mayor-elect, Can you and Mr. Banks